Hey everyone, welcome back to the Canadian Real Estate Homefront Podcast. This is episode 13, and we thank you so much for being here with us. Yeah, you ready just to jump into this?
Right into
Let's
it.
get right into it. Not bore anybody. All right, so we got a lot to cover today, but firstly, we're going to cover Canadian real estate is once again inflationary, reinforces the need for more hikes. This was an article by BMO and Better Dwelling. So yeah, let's hop into this one.
I feel like we've been talking about the fact that rates haven't done its job with house prices.
Yeah.
Like if we look at when it first started going up, the rates, it did essentially do its job. We saw that massive decrease.
Yeah.
And then since, I guess February, March, we started to see it creep back up.
I think it was $100,000 in like Toronto.
Right.
It went up. Yeah.
And it really shouldn't go up that quick.
No.
I mean, 6% per year is the normal factor that you anticipate real estate going up.
Yeah.
So I guess that just leads to more
rate hikes. Yeah, like the premise of this article is Canadian real estate prices are rising, and that's bad news if you're looking for cheap credit. Statistics Canada reported new home prices made the first increase in nearly a year. In a research note to investors, BMO warned the increase is just one of many housing data points that shows shelter is back to driving inflation, and that's bad news on the inflation front and means rates weren't high enough to temper expectations.
So I like that they said that it's just one point because it does go back to supply and demand with, even with rates high, if you're already in the market or, you have a large down payment or you have help or you're coming from wealth or, your parents are baby boomers, and you need housing, you're going to pay the prices. It's like a store, that has minimal supply. They can jack the prices up because if that product is of need, which shelter very much is, it comes down to that. So do rate hikes really affect it that much if our supply isn't
there? Yeah, it's a good point. I think also what people need to understand too is that at the beginning of the year, I think you could get a 5-year for around 4.7. So the yield was dropping. So the fixed rate was following the bond yields, and basically now we're at about 5.7 for a 5-year fix. So we've gone up a whole percentage point. So I think the anticipation at the beginning of the year was that rates were going to come down. And remember, rates aren't always just attached to what the Bank of Canada overnight rate is. It's very attached to the bond yield as well. It's kind of confusing, but we've explained it a few times on this podcast. So with everyone anticipating this rate drop, and now we're seeing the opposite of a rate drop, we're actually seeing them increase, and I think they're going to increase again, because that's what the Bank of Canada, they want people to stop their spending. And we talked about this even before this happened, was that they're looking at the TREB numbers. Yeah. They're seeing them rise. They're seeing multiple offers back. That's not what they want to see. So
it's not what they want to see. Well, in the Bank of Canada, really what they talk about is inflation. So the housing sector is really just one part of it.
Yeah.
Right. And so when inflation went up, that's what triggered this rate hike. And so the inflation numbers, I think they come out on Wednesday, an inflation
There's another
reading
report coming out.
So I think that will affect what they do in July, whether they raise or not. Because if we see inflation coming down as a whole, how can you say, just because this one sector is, still maybe inflationary, we need to raise the rate affecting essentially everything. If it's already kind of coming down and doing its job, knowing that they are inflicting a lot of pain on Canadians.
Yeah.
It is one sector.
Tough.
That's
it's
what
one
I
sector.
want to say. And it's really the supply. So
yeah, it's also too, to continue this article, he continues drilling on housing driven inflation. Rents are pushing up steadily. Mortgage interest costs are reflecting past rate hikes. Replacement cost is rising again, and other expenses such as real estate fees are also on the rise, with an upturn in resale prices. So it's kind of a crazy storm, because it's not, like we always talk about, it's not just the prices of homes going up, but rent goes up as well when rates go up, because the rental market becomes more competitive because less people have access to cheap credit. Yeah. So it's a whole driving force, and the resiliency of the Canadian real estate market is actually quite shocking.
Yeah.
And we've talked about this so many times, like just how many people want to be real estate investors or be homeowners.
You look at Europe, and so many people rent for their entire lives that they pass on their rentals to their kids.
Yeah.
Right. And it's not so much this like dream to be a homeowner.
Yeah.
There. And every time when I go to Europe, I'm like, oh my God, the lifestyle here, I just, for once, take a deep breath. It's not so much of a rat race
Yeah, it's
as
not.
it is in
Yeah,
Canada,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, 100%.
So, but I hear it all the time. It's everyone's dream to be a homeowner. And is that something that, you know, is media driven or put in our heads as like,
Yeah, I think we've seen our parents do it
yeah,
and become really rich. So it's like
yeah, well, I mean,
that's what you're kind of hoping.
yeah,
right?
retiring on a house with no mortgage after your career, obviously you're kind of set up better.
Yeah.
Um,
And there's nothing
I mean,
wrong. There's nothing wrong with renting it at all. It's just, yeah,
No.
you kind of hope that when you do retire one day, you have this asset that's, hopefully paid off and then you can obviously resell it to the next person. But
yeah, and downsize
yeah,
and live off of that.
yeah, I just don't think we're ever going to get the kind of gains that our parents got. I don't think it's going to be possible at the prices we're at now.
No, you think about how much it's increased in 40 years, what house prices were.
Yeah.
If we use that same calculation and then even go forward 20 years, it's astronomical what a resale detached 1,000 square foot home would be. It's just,
Yeah.
I don't think so either.
Yeah. And I think too, like the argument that with rates where they're at today is a lot of people have to talk about, well, back in my day it was 15%,
Yeah.
but your house was 80 to
80
100 grand.
grand.
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
now it's so much different if you just run the numbers. Like the average house in Canada is like 700,000. And that doesn't even include Toronto and Vancouver. And what right now you're looking at a 6% interest rate. You're stress tested at 8. It's just,
Not your
yeah,
stress tested at 8.
yeah. Like something needs to give.
Even the B lenders, I remember, were at 2%. It's
Right.
stress tested at 8 was just unheard of in kind of our generation. I don't think anybody really expected this.
You need more down payment. There's more land transfer tax.
Yeah.
There's a lot more that goes into it versus what our
What's
parents
an
had.
interesting fact is if you look at the countries that have 0% interest rate for mortgages and what their inflation is at. So you look at Canada, for instance, if we go back down to 1%, 2% interest rates,
Yeah.
our inflation's going crazy. So why is it that some countries that have 0%, essentially, it's almost like you make money borrowing, have minimal
Yeah.
inflation?
Yeah. I don't know. It's a good
So
question.
is
I'll have
it
to
a
study that.
direct correlation to the Bank of Canada rates, or is there so much more
Yeah.
going on? And the Bank of Canada, I guess they're really only, the Bank of Canada's control is changing the overnight rate, right?
Yeah.
That trickles down to what the bond yield does and what they speculate, which changes the fixed rate. But the government also plays another role. And everyone likes to talk about the Bank of Canada. But I think these other countries have it right with, building more and
Yeah. Supply is always
0% interest rates. And
Supply is
have no
always gonna be an
inflation.
issue.
How is that a thing? How does
I have to look into that. I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
let's talk about it next time. So
Yeah.
what countries have very low interest rates, high populations, but their inflation
Yeah.
is low? And what are they doing that we're not?
We're not. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know.
Because right now we're just
Usually when you have cheap credit, you put fuel on the fire. And,
Yeah.
and that's what happened during COVID was that credit was so cheap and everyone wanted to buy a house because that monthly payment was so cheap.
yeah.
So that's kind of why and then, people got a variable because I don't know, I think the fixed rate, the lowest it was at was like 1.5 or 1.3, but then you're looking at a variable a little bit less. And then, curiosity kills the cat. And here you are now went from 1.5 to 5.5. It's a shock. So
A shock to the system.
yeah, shock to the bank account. But moving on here. So we were talking about inflation kind of driving in the housing market, and it's like what other sectors are here. So Canadian retail sales outperform most major markets in Q1. Despite soaring interest rates and worries of an impending recession, Canadian retail continued to outperform much of the world in early 2023. Although spending dipped slightly in the first quarter, Canadian retail sales increased 2.4% year over year in Q1 of 2023, according to Colliers. So that's pretty crazy too. So on a provincial level, retail sales increased in every province except for British Columbia, which is, kind of surprising. But Alberta experienced the largest gain, with retail sales rising 10.2% year over year, while Ontario just saw a 2.8%. According to the report, the discrepancy between the provinces can be attributed to the significant number of Ontarians relocating to Alberta in search of affordability.
Buying a cheaper house in Alberta, I have this extra spending money. I'm going to go.
Yeah, I'm gonna go buy a new wardrobe. I'm gonna go buy,
So funny. A new car.
but people are still spending money, which is interesting.
Yeah. Again, it goes back to these rates are really affecting certain like parts of the population, and
Right.
not everyone as
Not
well.
everyone,
It is
yeah.
affecting everybody differently.
Mhm.
So there are people that are just not necessarily too affected, have a mortgage-free home, or
Yeah.
you know, want to rent for
Yeah.
the
There's a lot of
foreseeable
people
future.
that are mortgage free, right?
A
And then
ton of people in Canada. There was the percentage was
I think it was one
crazy.
third of people.
Own their home outright. So
Yeah.
yeah, they feel it in, you know, the
Different ways,
costs
but
of goods and stuff, but
yeah.
it's not affecting everybody equally.
Mhm.
But then we're measuring everything
And
equally.
we talked about that. Inflation should be measured differently for
It should
different
be.
people. It'd be hard to do, but it should be.
It
So
would be hard to do, but they're saying, oh my God, retail rose 2%. Oh my gosh, nobody's, you know, curbing their spending.
Mhm.
We need to raise the rates again. But
Yeah.
then there's those people that are like, I am curbing my spending. I
Yeah,
can't
yeah.
afford my mortgage. And
Yeah.
then the other people that probably don't even know what's going on
Yeah,
because they
yeah.
don't have a mortgage
Not even
to
interested
follow
in
the
this.
rates.
It's true.
That want a new wardrobe.
Yeah. Well, it does kind of come on here, and it just says the resiliency of the Canadian consumer stems from higher savings rates than were seen in pre-pandemic, as well as the continued release of pent-up demand of travel, hospitality, and entertainment. And I was talking about this too because I just turned 30 last week. And
Happy
people were like,
birthday,
yeah,
Dakota.
belated. Yeah, I know, the dirty 30. But
Dirty
people were
30.
talking about it, and I just said, you know, do you feel 30? It's like, I feel like I lost 2 years from COVID. So like, no, I don't feel 30. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like I lost 2 years of travel. I feel like I lost 2 years of going out. And that's what they mean by this pent up demand, is that
Interesting.
people, as soon as you had the savings from the pandemic because you weren't going out as much. And now you're like, kind of like, I know we're kind of over that hump. We've been over that hump for a while, but you still you have all these travel plans that you didn't get to do. And you have this kind of delayed effect of like, okay, now I want to go to Italy. Now I want to go to Greece. Like the amount of people I've seen still going to Europe, and the amount of statistics that you still see of people spending money and still going out there and vacationing and going to clubs. Like just go walk down King West. Like I was on King West on Saturday night. It's rammed. Like you can't get in anywhere. And like these aren't cheap bars. Like,
there's a lot of people out.
Your drinks are 15, 20 bucks. Yeah. Like there's still people. And I guess that's kind of like a summer effect too, I think, because, we have 6 months where we just like can't even sit on a patio. So when you get an opportunity to, it's exciting. So.
I wonder if they measured it. So how down it was during COVID. Obviously at one point it was 0 and nobody could even leave the country to travel.
Yeah.
And then now we're up and the numbers aren't crazy high. Like you're saying retail up 2%. Well, that
year over year.
Yeah. But how much, growth we lost over those 2 years of COVID. Obviously this is going to happen. People are, back to
last year though, you
life.
just had cheap credit. So I think that's kind of what people are surprised about, is like last year rates were a lot lower and now they're higher. So it should in turn stop the retail spender from spending, and it's not. So I think that's kind of the scary part. People are still spending, and that's not what the bank wants to see.
But it's like people carry on. Like things are more expensive, yes, but inflation already is coming down. I'm already seeing food prices come down. Like in the grocery store, I am. I've noticed the decrease in some of the crazy high prices. Like we were talking cereal that one time at like 10 bucks.
Yeah.
So I am seeing that. People still need clothes. People still need food. People like there's obviously still going to be spending, and it's more of like ups and downs. What we're seeing, inflation went up, then it came down. It's trickling in a downwards motion.
Well, it didn't come down yet.
Well, it's come down from where
from 8%. Yeah. Well, it just went back. It just retraced back up.
Yeah.
So until we get the next reading, don't say inflation's coming down.
It has come down. We were at 8. Now
no, I know,
we went to 4. Now,
but now we retrace back up, which is not what we want to see.
3.
It's still a retracement to the upside.
A lot of that was mortgage interest.
Yeah.
A lot of people came to their renewals. So we're measuring it.
Well, more people are going to come to the renewals even more now.
Yeah. No,
I just don't think inflation's dead. I
don't think it's dead either. And we're going to see on Wednesday, but it has come down significantly since they started these rate hikes.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess we'll see. I'll just finish it off here. Overall retail spending is maintaining a consistent trend, reflecting Canada's strong population growth and robust labor market. So favorable fundamentals are the driver for consistent growth in the retail sector until at least 2025. So yeah, it's true too, because we're bringing in more people. You have more people spending, more people buying clothes, more people buying furniture. So it's obviously going to attribute to this growth as well. So it's an interesting thing to think about.
It is.
More people are spending. So yeah.
Yeah, they were just talking about all these immigrants coming here.
Yeah.
celebrated 40 million people.
40 million
And then they
people.
said, oh my gosh, we're not stopping spending. We went up 2%.
Yeah.
It's like, well,
Yeah, no shit.
yeah.
This one's kind of off topic in a way, but I feel like it's something that we should talk about.
Okay.
So Canadians will no longer have access to news content on Facebook and Instagram. Meta says the social media giant Meta has confirmed that it will end access to news on its social media sites for all Canadian consumer users before Bill C-18, the Online News Act, comes into force. The tech company made an announcement on Thursday, the same day the bill was received royal assent. The bill will force tech giants like Meta and Google to pay news outlets for posting their journalisms on their platform. Meta said it will begin to block news for Canadian users over the next few months, and that change will not be immediate. And then this is what they said. We have reportedly shared that in order to comply with Bill C-18, content from news outlets, including news publishers and broadcasts, will no longer be available to people accessing them, our platforms in Canada, Meta said in a statement. So basically what this bill is that they want to push more Canadian content. Mm-hmm. And the flip side of that is, well, what if I don't want to consume Canadian content? What if I want to consume other content?
Yeah. And
they've been talking this. Yeah. Like people are talking, it's like a censorship thing.
Yeah.
I think I can understand why they want to push Canadian content more, but also it's like American politics is more popular here than Canadian politics.
Exactly.
And that's just what people decide, and society has that option to decide. So to push Canadian content on people, it's going to piss off big tech. But then the reverse is that big tech has control of so many things already.
They're controlling what we're watching, and they have their thumb on the accelerator to what they want to go viral in terms of the content that's put on these platforms. And it's crazy to me because when looking into what actually is, they're calling it CanCon, Canadian content.
Yeah.
Is that not ridiculous? CanCon.
Yeah.
Okay, CanCon. What actually is, for instance, us, like we said, oh, we'd be Canadian content. No, like it's like, even though we're in Canada, we're talking about Canadian real estate. It wouldn't necessarily be deemed Canadian content unless we fill out all of this paperwork, essentially go through a whole process.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. And number one, who has time to do that? Who has the resources to do that? And also to tie into that is, I don't want to be pushed up to people that are on these platforms, going to look at a skincare routine or something, and then our face pops up because we're
Canadian.
We're Canadian content approved, and then we get downvoted because it's like they don't want to hear about real estate. They want to look up a good skincare routine.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
Like, I don't want to be in front of people who don't necessarily search up what we're talking about. So you have to go through this entire process. I was listening to it. I'm like, it's so ridiculous because there's so many people that are just not going to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're going to fall to the bottom of, page 10 on YouTube or whatever it is. And whatever they feel is important for Canadians to see, they'll be able to push up the algorithm. And
it's wrong.
It is so wrong. Yeah. And
I don't want someone to be forced to see us if they don't want to, right? Yeah. I want you to want to see our content. And there's a reason why you're seeing our content. It's because you're interested in Canadian real estate.
Exactly. So people are going to start seeing more of what they want you to see because they're now censoring and having a direct input in the algorithm that everybody talks about. And it's going to be CanCon.
Yeah.
CanCon. Like,
well, it's also... From my understanding is that there's a lot of government subsidies to, different platforms like CBC and stuff like that. So it's like they're just going to decide what they want to push on you in a way from the government.
Yeah. So to the news outlets too.
Yeah.
So there was an amendment from the Senate given to the, I guess, Trudeau, the government on, they basically said that the reason we're doing this is so that if you release a song on YouTube and Spotify, it gets the same. Their reasoning was ridiculous. I can't even comprehend what they were trying to say.
Yeah.
And then the Senate brought forth an amendment that said, okay, this is actually going to solve the problem that you're speaking about. And they turned it down and disregarded their amendment. So there's much bigger things in their mind on why they're doing this, and their reasoning for doing it is, to serve us and to be helpful and, to focus more on Canadian people. And it's just all BS.
Yeah. I think even like Canadian content creators don't agree with it. Like there's obviously way bigger content creators than us who have watched say like, I don't agree with this at all. Like if someone wants to watch a cooking video from someone in a different country, they should be allowed to not watch my video.
North Korea
vibes.
Like
It's a little strange. Yeah.
Why did we become a dictatorship?
Yeah. Like I think the algorithm on the, Instagram platform and stuff like that, well, it does kind of cater to what you watch, in my opinion. Like obviously there's going to be some faults to it, but I notice when I watch a video longer than something else, it pushes that same content creator to me. So, but I've showed interest in it. So like, that's why it's pushing it to me, not because that person's Canadian.
Right. It's also the other side of it too, of even if you watch that person, it's not going to maybe come up as often because they're now controlling a little bit of the algorithm, whereas that person may pop up often, but now, when our videos go crazy viral, are they not going to?
Yeah, just because
we don't have the
form filter
mark of approval of CanCon.
Well, hopefully we can still keep rolling here because it's going well for us. But yeah, I don't know. It's kind of a weird kind of topic, and like as content creators, I thought it would be kind of cool to talk about.
I used to think how crazy it was that in China, the firewalls and everything, and North Korea and even Russia, like with the war and how they're propagandaing to their people, right? They show them what they want to see. So people in Russia think Ukraine tried to attack us, right? And I'm hearing things like that. And it's like, wow, like how crazy unfree they are to be showed these things. And most of the population will believe what they see on the news.
Yeah.
Right. And
which is getting paid by the government.
Which is being paid by the government. And they're hiding things behind news stories, right? Or, back to what just happened last week, the submersible, that was a 4-day news event on every single channel. Well, what happened behind the scenes that week? Now I'm hearing things about that. So a lot of conspiracy is coming up about it, but I think it needs to be talked about.
Yeah.
Because now it's going to directly affect people like you and I and the usership and of these platforms where people, go on it and want to at least feel like they're being told the truth. And now everything is kind of mixed in with the Russia, China, and North Korea kind of.
Yeah. Well, I think Twitter has done a really good job on looking.
He's Elon Musk.
Elon Musk bought it. Yeah. But it is like, if you want the most up-to-date news, like you get to choose who you want to follow and what you want to do. So like when Russia just had that like small civil war over the weekend, which was insane. Like I was really invested in it. Like I wanted to know what's going on. So I wasn't watching a news outlet. I was just on Twitter. Yeah. And they have like, Twitter Spaces. They're even popular for, Daniel Foch does his Twitter Spaces on Canadian real estate. And it's like, it's not news driven, where it's just actual realtors, mortgage brokers, investors are just in a space talking. So you can learn so much.
Right. Yeah. It's funny how much they try to shut down anything else that they can't directly control. So Twitter, now that I guess they can't have control over Twitter.
No, because it's Elon's baby now. So I guess that's it. But yeah, before we get canceled, maybe we should move on.
Maybe he needs to buy the rest.
I don't know if he's got enough money.
Save the world for us, Elon.
Zuckerberg won't sell it. But Meta's against what they're doing. So I guess the whole thing is it's a government bill. It's not.
When's the next election?
2025. It's still a while.
Long time to go, people.
Can't
you force an election? Or is that just the states?
You can, but because the NDP and the Liberals have this coalition, the NDPs would have to force it as well, I think, because they have a certain number of seats, and the Conservatives, because the Liberals don't have a majority.
Yeah, I know.
But they want a majority. So, I mean, they could call one. Again, they called one early, not too long ago. Was that a year and a half, 2 years ago? They called one. Yeah. And then everyone went to the voting table, and then it was the same result. They wanted a majority, but they didn't get it.
Well, he called it because he knew that he knew the outcome of it.
Yeah. Well, he wanted the majority, because he wanted more power.
Yeah.
More seats means you can make easier decisions to get through to the top. But I think, I don't know how much it was. It was millions of dollars.
He didn't get it though.
No, for the same result. So it wasn't a good thing.
Interesting.
Anyway. All right. So I love this Substack by Steve Staretsky. I always kind of pull some stuff from it. And his newest one today was "There Will Be Blood," and it kind of goes back to our first topic here. But there's a lot of good stuff in here that kind of will help people kind of understand what's going on in the Canadian real estate market. So perhaps one of the most fascinating stories of the year has been the resiliency in the nation's housing market. Prices have bounced sharply since the depths of the 2022 bear market. Surprisingly, even the housing bulls. There is no bueno for the Bank of Canada, who is desperately trying to rein in inflation after unleashing a fire hose of cheap liquidity the past few years. After shaking markets with a surprise 25 basis points unpause in June, it looks like they'll be back for more blood in July. Rising house prices will not be tolerated, at least in the near term. That's a difficult concept for us Canadians, considering the nearly 30-year bull market most homeowners have enjoyed. No shocker that mortgage credit has plunged to 20-year lows. At the same time, credit card borrowing is surging. In other words, people have stopped taking on mortgage debt and instead are ramping up credit card debt at 22% interest rates. Just this week, OSFI raised capital requirements for the big banks as financial concerns mount. The Domestic Stability Buffer, or Rainy Day Fund, has been increased for the second time in 6 months. Meanwhile, CMHC, the head of Canada's housing agency, says measures such as extending amortizations and changing the threshold to qualify for an insured mortgage are off the table. They said that just makes credit more available. It lowers the monthly payment, but it actually increases the cost of home ownership over time. It's not a winning formula because it drives up house prices.
Well, yeah, because then more people are staying in their home, not selling, because they have a 90-year amortization.
I don't think that's changing, but I think people are crying saying, let's do 35-year amortizations, let's do 40-year amortizations. But again, it would just make people, because people buy monthly payments.
People buy a payment.
And they're talking about the stress test. So you have the Bank of Canada raising the overnight rate. You have OSFI telling banks that you need to up your reserve fund in case something goes wrong. Basically, people default in their mortgage and you're left holding these homes and you're going to be at a negative loan to value. And then you have CMHC saying that we're not touching amortizations. We're not touching the stress test, because a lot of people are calling for the stress test to stop being so aggressive.
Yeah.
So you have this three-headed monster trying to bring down the Canadian real estate market, right? And then you have the Bank of Canada, sorry, not the Bank of Canada. You have the government providing stimulus and spending money when we know that's inflationary. So you have this kind of three-headed monster battling the government. But it is interesting, right? Like, they really do not want house prices to go up. Like, that's a huge indication of like the next 12 months. Where are we going? And I think that it's down, because I don't think that something has to give, right? Because you have these prices that have increased, right? And then you have these rates at, 6%, stress tested at 8%. We're probably looking at another rate hike. Inflation's still not where we want it to be. So,
okay,
like, where are we going?
Okay, so if I think about that and digest that, think about, so we came down from 2022 peaks, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I still work very frequently in Hamilton. Okay, house prices, you can get your first home, like I was talking about, in the 400s. Okay, what is the cost to build that same house today?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I can buy a resale home. Yeah, maybe it's dated, perfectly livable condition for $400K. What am I building that for? So if new construction, based on the cost of labor, the cost of materials, the cost of, the whole permit and the whole process is so high, but then the house prices on the market are way lower. There's a huge discrepancy there. That's going to create its own little problem.
Yeah. Well, I think that the Hamilton's such a broad range. Like, you can get something for 400, 500, but does everyone want to live there? No. So if you want to go on the mountain, what are you looking at? 750, 800?
Yeah.
At a 6% interest rate, stress tested at 8%. Or you look at Burlington, you look at Oakville. This is where I start seeing who's buying these homes.
Yeah.
At these prices, like, who can afford it?
Yeah.
Because incomes are just not keeping up. I know immigration's high, but how many of them are coming here with cash? Like, we've heard stories of people saying how expensive Canada is and they're not coming here with cash. I know there are going to be some people coming here with cash, but not everyone.
You know what I heard is that in parts of cities where they want to diversify, like add multiple units, put up towers where there's been older subdivisions of homes, instead of demolishing the homes, they're picking them up and moving them, and they're comparing costs. Yeah. So in BC, literally picking up the houses. They said out of 3,000 houses that were demolished last year, 600 of them could have been saved and not in our landfill. So they want to pick up the houses. And one guy was talking about how his house was picked up, and this isn't a modular home. So they're leaving the foundation. I don't know how they're doing it. And moving it, and he moved it with all of his furniture and put it somewhere and rented it or something.
It's crazy. It's because in Oakville they do it a lot too, because the homes are heritage.
Yeah.
So someone
pick it up.
So one of my clients actually, he had a heritage home on Trafalgar.
Yeah.
And in a heritage home, the basements it's like a stone foundation. The basements are like maybe 6 feet, right? So if you want another basement, there's companies that they lift the house up.
Yeah.
And then they dig you a basement now. So now you have this 9-foot ceiling downstairs. You have so much more living space. Apparently, they're so good at doing it that the guy said you could put a glass of wine on the home, in the home, and it wouldn't spill. Like, that's how good they are at moving homes, which is crazy too, right? Like, you're making a good point of, let's just keep this old material. Move the home.
Cost of building. Everyone's saying the cost of building, the pre-construction is so high. You can get resale condos for cheaper. It was never that way. Yeah. Okay. So they're already built.
Yeah. Here we go. Yeah. You can just move it. And then you can have a basement. You could literally dig a basement. Right?
And there's 2 units for you.
Yeah, there you go. A lot of some of the old Oakville homes too, like there was one on Lakeshore there, older home, but it had a huge lot. So what the person did was they subdivided the lot. They moved their house forward closer to Lakeshore, and they sold the lot behind it. And now there's a beautiful custom home behind that lot. So, you just another family.
Did
just
they
went
apply
in there.
for that permit in 1994?
Yeah. It took them 10 years to get it, but eventually
I mean, it is a good idea.
It is a good idea.
To do that.
Yeah. Also like
hair by then.
If you want to buy land, like through a lender, you can't.
You can't buy, can't finance. I don't want to say you can't finance land, because I'm going to have mortgage brokers messaging me for the foreseeable future.
I can get you 15% interest rate.
I know you can finance land. Yeah. It's obviously harder.
It's harder,
to do. So you usually need the cash.
Yeah.
To do so.
Yeah.
And then you need the cash to build.
Yeah.
You need cash.
Yeah, cash is king right now.
Yeah, and nobody has it.
Yeah.
Wow, if retail went up, clearly some people are.
Yeah. I guess to finish up this podcast is I think the next 12 months I think they're going to be slow. Like I think that I don't think we're going to see the surge in real estate prices. Rates are still going up. The bond yield is up when credit isn't cheap. And stress tests are still there. It doesn't look like anything's going to change. I think that the next 12 months will be slower. I don't know what it's going to bring. I'm not saying there's going to be a crash or anything like that, but
I don't think there's going to be a crash. I put out that video on my Instagram today talking about how when we were saying the Wall Street bets, thinking the Canadian real estate market's going to crash, shorting it.
Yeah.
No way. The supply is just too low. So maybe we see more of a balanced market, maybe a little bit more.
Yeah, we're heading towards a balanced market. I don't think we're going to see offer nights.
Look at December and January. This past December and January, it was a crazy buyer's market. We were so slow. And
November.
Now it picked up again. Everyone's like, oh my God, the housing market's going to crash. Maybe we just kind of head back into the December, January.
Yeah.
Things move. Things are still getting multiple offers in January. The really good ones, right? Yeah. There's not a lot of inventory in certain neighborhoods that are nice. So, the buyers on the sidelines that are not in a rush, but that's what I'm looking for. Maybe they all kind of
we'll see. I think job loss is probably coming down the pipeline. I think that there's a lot of companies that have ramped up for protection against that. They're not hiring. Tech isn't hiring.
Even in our industry, you said how many agents and mortgage brokers are leaving?
Oh, I don't know. It's a hard number to quantify. Like when you look at the TREB numbers, you can see like for the first time in a long time, the amount of agents is actually falling off. Yeah. Incomes are down for sure for a lot of big teams. Like just ask them how it's going. I think that the big teams will probably do the most and the big agents will do the most volume right now, just be out of reputation and overhead and what they can spend. But I think it was the Instagram you're talking about. Incomes are down like 60% for a lot of mortgage agents.
That's what you said.
Yeah.
60%. That's big.
Yeah, it's huge. Yeah.
Imagine taking a 60% and having a lifestyle that you become used
realtors get the BMW. I can't show up and not my BMW. My clients are going to think I'm broke.
That's it. Well, there's a lifestyle that comes with it for sure. You want to work with a busy, successful agent.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, but I guess we'll see. We'll see what happens, and obviously we'll keep you guys updated. Lots more headlines coming out soon, which is good for us.
Inflation on
Inflation,
Wednesday.
Got a few job reports coming out as
Bank
well.
of Canada meeting again on July 12th, which happens to be
your birthday. That's good. I remembered that.
He looked so confused
Yeah,
when he looked at me.
but I remember you saying like July 14th, you're gonna have all your friends to do the birthday dinner. So I remember that. So yeah.
No, it's July 12th.
So hopefully a rate hike on your birthday or no rate hike.
I lost the bet last time. I don't want to lose on my birthday.
Yeah, 2 in a row. Yeah. Okay, we won't do
No
that
bet this time.
Yeah. Anyways.
I'll write it down on a piece of paper, and if I'm right, I'll say I was right.
Yeah. You can date it and take a picture for proof. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thanks so much for watching. If you're on YouTube, please like and subscribe, and share this with your friends if they're interested in real estate. We're also on Instagram and TikTok, which are probably our most popular platforms because it's just short form. So if you want more short form stuff, go there and follow us. And yeah, we appreciate you guys a lot, and we'll be back next week. Thanks so much.
Thank you.